Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful last day of May. It's about time we got some nice sunny weather here in the southern part of Wisconsin. We are very excited to bring Jeff Kirsten from Wisconsin DATCP, Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection, to you today so that he can teach you how to protect against scams and frauds targeting small businesses. Um, a couple of quick housekeeping items before we turn things over to Jeff. Number one, the webinar is being recorded and we will distribute the recording in a few days. And number two, we do use the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen for questions that you may have that come up throughout the program. If you give us some time, we will leave about 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the program to answer questions that have accumulated throughout the presentation. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to our guest presenter today, Jeff Kirsten.
Thanks so much for joining me today, everybody. So my name is Jeff. I work for the State of Wisconsin Bureau of Consumer Protection, and we're here to talk about scams and frauds that target your small businesses. And a little background about myself. I was a police officer for about 13 years. So certainly during that career, I've seen criminal activity and people trying to steal from others. And I don't know, that certainly doesn't make me a internet cybersecurity expert, where a lot of these attacks against your businesses are going to be through the computer. But seeing that criminal activity, I think, gives me a background to kind of speak about how they try to target us. I was also an investigator for the Bureau for about a year before taking this position. So I have a little inside information on how we investigate and mediate these cases and try to help out businesses and consumers when they fall victim to a scam. So without further ado, we're just going to kind of jump right into this and start talking about these scams and frauds that target us. A little background about the Bureau of Consumer Protection. I don't know if you as business owners or consumers have had contact with us, so I just kind of want to go through a little bit about what we are and what we do. We're a mediation agency. There's about 70 different laws that we regulate. We're just gonna kind of be focused on scams and frauds today, but basically, if you as a consumer have a transaction with a business that didn't go the way you thought it should, the business wasn't following the rules, consumers can certainly reach out to us and file complaints, and we can look into that and mediate those cases and try to come to an agreeable resolution. As business owners, I mean, there's a chance that consumers could potentially file a complaint against you. You may hear from my agency. We may send out a letter. We're impartial. We don't take the side of the consumer. We don't take the side of the business. We field those complaints, and of course we need to reach out to the business. So if you ever do get a letter from us, we're just looking for a response and just trying to open up those channels of communication and try to come to an agreeable resolution for both parties. So how we serve Wisconsin consumers, we have a consumer protection hotline. I like to brag about this. There's 7 people on our hotline that answer the phone, and you only have to wait on hold an average of 22 seconds before a real live human being picks up. And we like to brag that we're the easiest state agency to get a hold of a real person. And we're a great place for businesses, consumers, law enforcement, to start. And we're really good at navigating state government. There's so many different departments and divisions and bureaus, and they all have their own specialties, and trying to get somebody to the right agency for whatever is going on. We're pretty good at navigating that if it's not something that we can help out with. I already mentioned that we mediate in consumer complaints, investigate cases, certain things we can take enforcement action. We educate and inform Wisconsin consumers and businesses, kind of what we're doing here today. We administer the Do Not Call law. I do a lot of presentations to the public on scams and identity theft, and we're all tired of those scam phone calls, and we talk a lot about that. Help people recover stolen identities, administer securities programs and consumer products. We regulate them for hazardous items, and a lot of things that we're doing to help out Wisconsin consumers. But today we want to talk about these scams and frauds that are targeting not just us as individuals, but targeting our businesses. And so we can just have a little discussion this morning about some of the different types that are out there. Bear with me. The first part of the presentation is going to be all the bad info, right? They're after you. They want to break into your computers, but then there are some things that we can watch out for. These red flags, if you will, that you can, when you identify it and this is a scam, and you can just hang up the phone. Don't respond to that email. Don't respond to that text message. Just end that communication, and hopefully protect your business from falling victim to something. But if your business is affected, it might be something that we can help out with. So, is your business being targeted? Yes. I mean, it doesn't matter how big your business is, how long you've been in business, what type of business you're in. Basically, if you have a computer that's hooked up to the internet and you're using that for your business, and honestly, who's not? I mean, everything is done on the computers or the internet now. You're being targeted. There's these automatic bots out there that are constantly trying to break into our computers. IT professionals have kind of described it to me. They use the analogy of like somebody trying to get into your home. They're going to try the front door. If the front door is locked, they're going to walk around to the back. They're going to see if the patio door is locked. They're going to check the windows. And if they can find a way to get into the home, they will. And these automatic bots are doing the same thing. I think there's been some studies out there that if a computer is hooked up to the internet with an outdated operating software or a known vulnerability, sometimes it's just a matter of minutes or hours before these bots will find that computer and break into it. Now, why are they breaking in? Why are they targeting these computers? Well, there's a number of different motives. We certainly know that there's many criminals out there that just want to make money. Somebody might want to make a social action, make a statement, steal trade secrets. But then there's also this cyber warfare. They might want to just attack the infrastructure. If your business is related to energy or food, something of an essential nature like that, where disrupting the business greatly affects people. Think about the attack on the Eastern Pipeline a couple of years ago, attacks on our infrastructure. If you haven't read it, this Lights Out book by Ted Koppel is a really good read on kind of just how fragile some of the systems are here in the U.S. When it comes to fuel supply and food supply, and some of those businesses that are involved in that really have to take cybersecurity that much more seriously. I just threw this slide in here because we need to talk a little bit about cryptocurrency. Many of these scams, whether it's on the personal side of things, where victims are getting talked into going to the store and buying prepaid gift cards and wiring money to folks. There's a lot of criminals out there that really like to use cryptocurrency. Now, I'm not here to say that cryptocurrency is a scam. There are certainly people out there that will tell you that. I just bring it up in a scam presentation that criminals are using it. And I don't know how much anyone on this webinar knows about cryptocurrency. There might be people that are very well versed in it, and there might be somebody on this call who doesn't even really know what Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is. But even if you know nothing about it, it's really, really easy nowadays to buy. Well, specifically Bitcoin as one type of cryptocurrency. If you just do a quick search on your phone for something called the Bitcoin ATM near me, you're going to see these machines all over the place. And businesses are a lot of the ransomware scams. They'll kind of force the hand of the business to go to one of these machines, feed a bunch of money into the machine, effectively buying that much Bitcoin, and then giving the scammer that information over the phone as a way to steal the money from the other side of the world with very little recourse for an agency like mine or law enforcement to try to get that money back. Artificial intelligence has also kind of put a new twist on a lot of the scams that are out there. It only takes 3 seconds of somebody talking, the audio of their voice, and a criminal can use a computer to grab that voice and mimic that voice. And now, even on top of just the audio, there's the deep fake video. If you're looking for a good article to read on how this could be used against a victim, a business, to victimize a business, there was a company over in Hong Kong, I believe it was just earlier this year, where there was 4 people on a Zoom call, you know, very much like what we're on right now. And they were all like C-level executives. So you know, chief executive officer, the financial officer, somebody in finance, and you know, somebody else, and they're having this meeting. These are people who work together all the time, and it's a video Zoom call. And they get the one individual is directed to make a wire transfer for the equivalent of 26 million US dollars to this one particular account. And at the end, when they realized this was all a scam, the person that did the wire transfer, that was the only real person that was on that Zoom call. The other 3 people that were on that call were criminals using avatars, basically. They were using overlays to their video that made them look like this person's coworkers and used the coworkers' voices. So sometimes it's not just audio. They're even able to fool us over potentially a Zoom call. So there's going to be a big theme to today's presentation that whenever a conversation turns towards money, all of a sudden you personally or your business is being asked to transfer money or wire money or do something with money, pay a particular bill, you got to pump the brakes and verify it through numerous methods. You know, if there's all of a sudden new wire transfer instructions or a new bill that needs to be paid, or is, you know, some kind of a new detail of where this money needs to be sent, that might not be a real vendor, that might not be a real coworker that's asking you to do that. That could be a criminal using artificial intelligence. Different tactics that they use, a lot of the same stuff that we see in our personal lives. You know, they pretend to be somebody that we can trust, you know, these imposter scams. They create that sense of urgency, emergency. You know, if you don't take action now, something really bad's going to happen. Using fear and intimidation, they try to you know, get somebody to panic about a situation. We as human beings, when we're upset, we're emotionally charged, we're angry, we're intimidated, we're fearful about a situation. When we're in that state of mind, we tend to not make very good decisions. And I know it really seems like a big jump that, you know, somebody's just going to call you up on the phone or send you an email or a text and get you to panic about something. And then all of a sudden you find yourself going to the bank and pulling out money and driving to a Bitcoin ATM to feed money into it, or buy gift cards and mail them out to somebody. But it happens. It's happening as we speak. It happens every day. And all the victims I've talked to, and I've talked to lots of victims, not only from the business side of things, but the personal side of things, after it's all said and done, they all kind of tell me the same thing. You know, like, I know about scams. I've been told about this. I was told to watch out for some of these things, but in that moment, it was so real, and they just didn't think there was anything else they could do, and they ended up losing money. So I'm just hoping that, you know, some of these red flags will stick out in your mind. If you see this in the future, like I said earlier, just end that call, don't respond to that email or text, just hang up, just verify things through multiple sources before money is sent somewhere else. If this happens to your business, obviously there's an impact. Loss of money, loss of access to your computers, loss of being able to do future business if you can't get into your computers. And then if we talk about a data breach, it may be a situation where now under law you're required to notify your customers that somebody got into your computer systems and accessed files, and if those if that customer data included the name of the customer and their potentially their payment card information, social security number, date of birth, all that personal information, you may have to notify your customers about that, about a data breach. And that's not a good day for business. We don't want to have to, you don't want to have to do that. I don't want you to have to do that. That's we want to avoid this altogether. One of the big ones that affects business is this business email compromise. We've all seen these emails. They pretend to be somebody in the business, whether somebody in finance or a supervisor, the boss, the CEO. They sometimes called whale phishing, sometimes called spear phishing, where emails are sent out and try to get somebody to pay an invoice. Like I mentioned earlier, there's just an updated mailing address or an updated wire transfer instruction. Something is different than what normally where that bill is paid, or the boss is just asking for gift cards to be purchased. They want to give them as rewards, and email me the serial numbers right away so I can send them out immediately, and I'll reimburse you for this. And maybe for a brand new employee who doesn't know how things are done at this business, in that moment, that just might make sense. And you want to keep the boss happy, and before you know it, this employee runs to the store and buys some gift cards, and then ends up finding out that all of that is just a scam later on. So here's a quick little graphic from the FBI on how this business email compromise works. It can be very in-depth, and it can also be a situation where the criminals really don't do their homework, and those are the easier ones to detect. But if a criminal has targeted your business, the step number one, they've identified you. They look online, they see who the players are, they see the domain for the website and the email address, and maybe they see on the website, who the owner is, or they look something up on DFI's website and they get some information for the registered agent. And, they start putting together as many pieces of the puzzle as they can. And then they may call or email or send text messages. And, this is the step 2, the grooming stage. They're talking to people and they're trying to figure out who in the business has the authority to do certain things, who has the ability to pay bills and move money around. And we can have the best security systems on our computers, but humans are humans, and humans can be manipulated, and persuasion is a real thing, and these criminals are good at that. And the more they can figure out about how your business works and who has the ability to do things, and the way your business emails are formatted and what they look like, then step 3, when they send out the real, their final product, the fake email where they try to get somebody to do something, it looks right and it fits right in and it looks like it comes from the right person. And again, that new wire transfer instructions, and then they find out that, you find out that your business lost a bunch of money. Quick little story. There was a business in Minnesota. I don't remember the type of business it was, but the chief financial officer for this particular business had a big presence on Twitter, or what we now call X, and liked to go to Vegas and play in poker tournaments. And that's really kind of all the criminals had to go on in the beginning. And so this particular CFO posted on Twitter where, their next tournament was in Vegas. So, the criminal knows what the dates and times are. And they found the CFO's work phone number on the website. And that actually came back to the CFO's iPhone. Well, the CFO flies to Vegas for this poker tournament. About when his plane lands, he gets a text message on his work phone that looked like it came from the tournament director with a link to click on for the updated tournament schedule for this poker tournament. And of course, that all made sense. So he clicks on the link, and what that did, just simply clicking on that link in that fake text message, gave the criminal access to that iPhone. So now the CFO is playing in the poker tournament. I don't know if you've ever played poker in Vegas or anywhere else, but they don't let you have your phones while you're doing that for obvious reasons. So while he's away from his phone or doesn't have access to it, an email is sent back to the home office from the actual email account for the CFO, and not a fake one, not something that somebody back at the home office could look and see that, the email address is a little off or a little wrong. It actually came from the iPhone. And it was a pretty simple email. It was something along the lines of, as you know, I'm in a poker tournament and I don't have access to my phone. You're not going to be able to get a hold of me, but I need you to transfer $250,000 to this account by the end of day. I expect this to be done. And who's going to say no to the CFO? Well, about 3 hours later, he busts out of the tournament, turns his phone back on, and to a flurry of emails and phone calls and text messages, wondering what's going on, and finds out that somebody followed through with the instructions and that his company lost $250,000. And it all started with just a little bit of information online, and then a criminal sending a text message with a link to that work cell phone. Moral of the story is don't click on links unless you know exactly who sent you that and that that it's a real text message. That works. That's good advice for us on the personal side of things and the business side of things. Here's a couple of examples of some fake emails. If you read through some of this, you may find some bad grammar in some of these emails. I think that ship has sailed a little bit. If they want to make a perfectly worded email, they certainly can. I've actually been told that some of the bad grammar they intentionally leave in scam emails because this sounds backwards, but they're actually kind of trying to weed out the people who can pick up on the bad grammar. They don't want to target those individuals because that person is less likely to follow through with the scam later on. The theory kind of is they leave the bad grammar in, and someone who doesn't even pick up on the bad grammar that responds to one of these emails, well, they didn't even pick up on the bad grammar, so they're more likely to follow through with the scam later on down the line. But you'll look at this one right here. Somebody's filed a complaint against your business with the Better Business Bureau. Here's a link. I mean, who doesn't want to click on that link, right? Everybody wants to know what the complaint is, what the problem is. You want to get to the bottom of it. It looks real official. Your abuse ID case number. All of this is fake. If you look up at the top, the inbox, you can see where it comes from. This RITYINC.com. If you hovered your mouse over that, it'd be some long email address that wouldn't make sense. Doesn't look like a Better Business Bureau email. Bottom line, if in doubt, just don't trust this email. Reach out to the company in question directly through real contact information to find out if something has really been filed. Same thing right here. Sam Jones sent in an email to Kat Taylor that they both apparently work at this bank. If you look real close at those email addresses, you might see a discrepancy between ABC Bank and ABD Bank. But, if somebody was real quick looking at something, you might not notice that. Notice the urgency in the email, we expect this to be done immediately, and it was due yesterday and we're late. This is urgent. Now, again, some of these email addresses, I don't want to get too far into the weeds on this, but the old tricks of replacing like a capital I with the letter 1, or a 0 in place of an O. Sometimes those still work, but your computers are capable of handling hundreds of different languages, and there's plenty of other languages out there where the letters of the alphabet look the same. A good example of that, like in the Russian alphabet, the capital letter R looks exactly the same as the capital letter R in the English alphabet. And in the eyes of your computer, that's a completely different character. But in the eyes of, in our eyes, when you just look at it with your eyeballs, it looks like the capital letter R, and you can't tell the difference. So sometimes, if they put that much work into it, you can't just trust that the email address looks right or comes from the right place. Again, if all of a sudden, there's new wire transfer instructions or a new bill that you've never heard of, or you got to send something in somewhere else. Whenever we're talking about your money or your business's money, you got to pump the brakes and verify this through multiple different sources. They of course target our mobile devices. We already talked a little bit about that fake text message to that CFO for that company in Minnesota. On the personal side of things, I believe the #1 text scam out there right now is, we're trying to deliver your package, but we have incomplete address information, and click this link to complete it. That's actually taken over some of the other ones, but you're going to see these for your business as well. If you didn't order anything over the last couple days, pretty easy to detect that this might be fake. I'm not looking for tracking information. Nothing's being delivered. But as a business, you might have shipments coming in all the time, and just one of these messages slips through, and before you know it, you click on that link, you think you're getting something from FedEx or the post office or USPS or UPS, and just clicking on a link, as I mentioned earlier, can compromise one of your devices. Just like what I tell people on the personal side of things, just don't take that shortcut. If you're really looking for the tracking information, go back to where you ordered the item from, and find the real information there, the real tracking information or order information, invoice. If they're able to get into your computers, they get somebody to open up an attachment to an email, or get somebody to click on a link in a fake email. One of the most popular forms of malware is ransomware. And what they'll do is they'll just encrypt your entire computer. If anybody followed the story last summer, I think it was around August, when MGM Properties out in Vegas got attacked. I think Caesar's Palace also got attacked out in Vegas. And they took two different routes. MGM Properties chose not to pay the ransom. And there's all kinds of videos of people walking around the casino floor, and all the slot machines have error messages on them. And MGM Properties was completely out of business for, I think it was close to like 2 weeks before they could get their systems back up online. Caesar's Palace got attacked the same way. They chose to pay the ransom, which I believe was $30 million, and their computers were back up online immediately. So 2 different routes to recover. If you have insurance, cybersecurity insurance for your business, your insurance company may encourage you to pay the ransom. It's kind of been proven it's the fastest way to get your business back up online. Of course, law enforcement and the FBI don't recommend that you pay the ransom. That just encourages this behavior and leads to more of it. The best is to avoid it in the first place. Hopefully having the antivirus protection on your computers, and training employees to not click on those links and not open attachments from unknown emails. But if they are able to lock your computer down, it can be very difficult to get that computer unlocked and it can take a lot of time. Some businesses will back up their hard drives to external hard drives that are not hooked up to the network. The theory being that if you ever suffered a ransomware attack, well, you could just go back to the last time you updated the hard drive. Let's say you update it, the first of the month. Worst case scenario, you can recover to that hard drive, and you've only lost, at most a month's worth of data, as opposed to everything. But ransomware, like I mentioned earlier, it's the number one form of malware out there. Social media, this gets really tricky for businesses. On the personal side of things, I tell people to, keep their accounts private and don't respond to public posts, and keep your friends list private, and, private. But that doesn't always work for business, right? Business wants to make public posts. You're looking for, I'm assuming you're looking for more customers, and you want your messages to get out there to as many people as possible. Well, when it's public and it's on social media, it's easier for the criminals to target. One of the things they might do is create an imposter account. So they might see your business's account, or they see somebody's personal account. They're not friends with that personal account. They can't see much of the detail. There's nothing that stops a criminal from just taking, a screenshot of whatever photo the business is using for their profile picture, and then they just create a brand new business page, and they just use that photo, and they use that name of the business. Then they have control of a social media account that looks just like your business's account. And then they might reply to a message, or they send out a message, or they make a post. And if your customers see that and they recognize the picture and the name of the business, and it looks the same, it's tougher sometimes for one of your customers to know what comes from you and what comes from a criminal just using an imposter account. Unfortunately, there's not much that can be done about imposter accounts. You can reach out to social media. They will eventually shut them down, but that can take time, and it literally just takes seconds for a criminal to just create a brand new one with that same profile picture and that same name. You might end up having to turn replies off to some of your posts, so that if you're getting too many of these scam messages coming in. Of course, weak passwords. We want to have good, strong passwords for all of our accounts. Different passwords, make it as difficult as possible for criminals to try to hack into our accounts. Want to enable multi-factor, two-factor authentication whenever possible, so that even if someone figures out a username and a password, that person probably doesn't have access to email or text messaging or an authenticator app, and it'll still keep the criminals out. And then when they do send these fake messages out, often it's too good to be true investment offers and business opportunities. Charity scams. We didn't talk a whole lot about the do not call list earlier, when I said that's one thing that we one of our programs here in the Bureau of Consumer Protection. But real quick, the do not call list is for telemarketing. So if your business is calling Wisconsin consumers, the cold calls, and trying to sell a product or a service to somebody here in Wisconsin, those businesses need to register with us as a telemarketer. And there's a way that businesses can scrub their call lists against the do not call list, so that they make sure that they don't call people that they're not supposed to. And good businesses, they follow the rules, and that's all great. But criminals, well, they're not intimidated by our do not call laws in Wisconsin, so they're going to call people up and try to scam them. And the reason I'm talking about all this on a charity scam slide is because guess who doesn't have to follow the do not call list? Charities, because they're nonprofit. So you personally or your business may get phone calls from charities. And I really can't stress this enough. There's no way to tell what's real and what's fake. We all know you can't trust caller ID. Through spoofing, they can make your caller ID say whatever they want. You can't trust what somebody's saying because, well, a criminal will just lie and impersonate a real charity. And when you go back and think about that AI slide, they can mimic the voice of somebody. So you can't even necessarily trust a voice that you recognize. So my only advice with this, when it comes to giving money to charities, whether you're doing it from your business or personally, is don't let someone call you up and tell you where your money should go. You decide if your money needs to go somewhere. You decide who you're going to support. You reach out to that charity, not the other way around. Utility scams, this happens to businesses just as much as consumers. They call up, they pretend to be with the phone company, the internet, the gas and electric company, and there's that urgent sense. You're behind on your bill, and you've got a crew on the way to your business to turn your power off, or they get somebody to panic, and you got to pay right now over the phone, and they might be able to stop that crew from showing up and turning your power off. Hang up. Who knows if these calls are real? They're probably just fake. But here's the way you get to the bottom of it. Call the real power company. Call the real, phone internet service provider. Don't just call the number back that showed up on caller ID. Don't just Google the name of the business that you're trying to get a hold of. Go to your bill. Find a real phone number on your bill. Call the business back, and then you can make sure that everything is okay with your account. The good old toner phoner scam, the office supplies. There's criminals out there that will just send invoices to your office, and if they can figure out what type of copy machine you use or what toner cartridge it needs, office supply type stuff, and all of a sudden if just bills show up, sometimes places just pay those bills, and there's criminals out there that will target your business that way. So, some strategies to avoid this, have an approved vendor list. If it's something outside of that, has to be, multiple eyeballs looking at it to make sure that this isn't fake, verify it through multiple sources. Having limited people in the office who have the ability to pay bills, the ability to write out checks so that you can monitor all of that. I'm certainly not here to tell business how to do things, how to structure your offices, but just some thoughts on having some of those checks and balances. Sometimes places will send in the criminals will send you checks written out for too much money. I was recently talking to somebody that runs a catering business, and also separately another business that runs a bed and breakfast. And both of them have told me they get contacted all the time by places that want to book for like 2 or 3 weeks at a time for the bed and breakfast, big dollar bill, right? Or, this elaborate fancy dinner for the catering business. We're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and then they'll hold it with a credit card, and then sometimes there's so many different ways this can go. They'll send in a check for this higher dollar value. They'll try to get the business to deposit that check into your account, and then they'll have some story of why the check was written out for this higher dollar amount, and you keep some for the down payment, and then can you send the rest back to me, and you keep a little extra for yourself. Thanks for doing this for me. All these checks will bounce, or they'll put a down payment on a stolen credit card, and then they'll call up and they'll cancel that big reservation, and then, oh, I don't have that card anymore, and I need you to refund it to this other card. And there's all these different little tricks out there. You really got to watch out for these check overpayment scams, or somebody that wants you to deposit something into your bank account or issue them a refund to a different card. A lot of that can just be fake activity. And then, there's still people that just might walk into your office, the insurance fraud, somebody slips and falls or hurts themselves while they're on their property, fraudulently, just trying to scam your business. Somebody might just drop a flash drive. The reason I have a flash drive laying here is, they'll have a flash drive, it'll say payroll confidential, and they'll just leave that laying somewhere on somebody's desk. Who doesn't want to plug that into a computer and find out what everybody else makes? But as soon as you plug that into a computer, well, now that computer has ransomware installed on it. And then where are people allowed to go in your business? I had a good friend from high school that one of his post-high school jobs was delivering products to a grocery store. And he told me that one of the biggest things he learned on that job was, as long as you wear a polo shirt and you have a two-wheel cart, you can walk anywhere you want. And into the back rooms and unauthorized restricted access areas, and no one ever questions you. So again, I don't know what businesses I'm talking to, but if you have areas where the general public or even delivery people are not allowed to go, making sure that they're not going back there. I think we covered all this. We're going to, wrap this up here in just a few slides. You got to know who you're dealing with. Before doing business with a new company, search that company's name. You can call us, look for complaints, too good to be true offers. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. Don't have to, pay for free information. There's a lot of, info out there on, our website, DFI's website, and that while you're doing this research for some of these other businesses. I think I covered all of this. Be careful about wiring money. Got to verify it through multiple different sources. Don't give company info over the phone, or do it as little as possible. Some people, they run their own small business on their own personal laptop. That can certainly muddy the water. If viruses or malware is able to get onto a personal laptop, and then all of a sudden it switches over, and that computer also has business files on it, you can see how that could be problematic. Obviously do the best job everybody can do in hiring new people, but there's always the chance for a malicious, employee. Screening visitors and vendors, I think we covered all of that. Depending on your business, it might make sense to train your employees. There's a lot of cybersecurity training out there. There's if you have insurance for your business, they might offer some of that. Some of these companies will even send fake emails throughout the year and kind of test your employees at how good they are at avoiding them and not clicking on scams. I did a presentation recently for a bank where they use a system like that, and the top 3 employees for the company all got recognized at this all staff meeting as being the 3 best at detecting those scam emails and not clicking on those links. And it was kind of a fun little way to recognize some people that were doing good work with their computers. Again, I think we covered, knowing who pays invoices and who can place orders and who has the ability to do that. Talk about this at your employee meetings, because it's us humans using the computers, we're always the weak link. Just want to make sure I covered all this. I mean, sometimes we have to verify our information. If you call up the bank and you start asking questions about your account, the bank's going to ask you questions to make sure you are who you say you are. You might do the same thing with your customers. When your customers call you, they're just a phone call, and you don't necessarily even know who that is. Look out for, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with gift cards or cryptocurrency, but if someone else is telling you need to buy that, that's probably related to a scam. Urgent, immediate, take action now or something bad's going to happen, a big red flag of a scam. The government generally doesn't make phone calls. So getting a phone call, certainly from the federal government out of the blue, is not legitimate. Just be really, really careful about clicking on links in emails and text messages. And I hope this doesn't happen to you, but if it does, report it to law enforcement right away. They do have some tools in getting money back, or at least freezing the money when it comes to gift cards and cryptocurrency. If money was sent through the mail, contacting the post office right away, try to put a stop to those packages before they get delivered. But then also don't forget about us. File a complaint with us. And we'd be happy to look into that scam. You know, what we try to do is we try to mitigate the financial loss. So we can track those gift cards and cryptocurrency and send out subpoenas and civil investigative demands, and not always successful, but sometimes we're able to get money back for folks when it comes to a scam. And with that, I can pause here, and I think Pete's going to help me monitor the Q&A button. I don't know if anything came in.
Yes, sir. We do have some questions and some comments. I first want to say thank you, Jeff. You certainly struck a chord with several of our attendees, including maybe shedding some light on why one of our attendees, who happens to be an office supply company, has such a hard time getting through to people, to new prospects with phone calls. Sounds like some people out there are taking your advice and not just picking up the phone and listening to everybody. So we are going to start with maybe kind of a basic question. I know you answered it a little bit, but I think maybe hearing again why people fall for this, what goes through their mind might help our attendees as they start to think about how to talk about this with their employees or with their vendors if they're implementing new procedures, right?
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I think if why people fall for this, I think just, these criminals are really good at manipulating situations. I think, we as human beings are just more easily manipulated and subject to persuasive techniques than sometimes we care to admit. And in that moment, the criminal just is able to formulate this situation where it just looks like this is the only option, and that, maybe an employee thinks they're going to get in trouble if they don't do that wire transfer right now, or they're going to upset the boss if they don't run to the store and buy gift cards that, they've been told they're going to get that reimbursed, or, it's I don't know why, but I can tell you this, like, I have talked to victims that didn't graduate high school, and I've talked to victims that have PhDs, business owners, master's degrees, and everything in between. So, I mean, there seems to be no, that's a tough one for me to answer. I think we're all just kind of susceptible to this. It's just a matter of time before you get this right communication, or should I say wrong communication, at just the worst possible moment when there's something going on in your personal lives or just something going on at your business where this particular communication just makes sense in that moment. And before you know it, you get sucked in.
I agree. I think that is a really hard question to answer, and I appreciate you taking a stab at that. I do think that the more we are aware that we have weaknesses, just like all of our coworkers, employees, friends, family, the better equipped, the more often we're reminded of that, the better equipped we are to kind of smell these at the beginning, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I have one that I really like here. You may have answered it already, though, during your presentation. We have an attendee who's wondering what is the best or the most strategic scam you have seen in your experience?
That's probably that one with that Hong Kong company where they use the AI with the Zoom call. I mean, I think that's the easy answer for me. I mean, there's so many though. I had a chance to hear Frank Abagnale speak at a AARP event in Madison. Well, I guess about 5 years ago now. He's if you don't know who Frank is, he's the famous Catch Me If You Can scammer guy from the 70s. They Leonardo DiCaprio, they made a movie out of him. and he now works for the FBI, and he's a consultant when it comes to scams. So he was telling us some of the business email compromise scams that he's seen, and they're so simple, but they're so well formulated. It's kind of scary. Like he told us about this one company where, you know, it was the you know the two big people in the company, you know, whatever you want to call them, the CEO, the CFO, the bosses, you know, and they had gone golfing the day before, and there was a post on Facebook about somebody going golfing. And then the next day, an email comes out, and this is the fake email. It was like, "Hey, Jim, it was great to see you on the links yesterday. How about that shot on hole 17?" And then, as you know, I'm flying here for a conference today. I'm not going to be on my phone much, but I need you to, you know, transfer this money to this charity before, you know, end of business day. It was just, I'm not doing it justice. It was worded better than that, but you know, just from a Facebook post about somebody going golfing, or just from a social media post about somebody going to somebody's house for dinner the night before. And then these fake emails that would come out that just look like they come from that person. And then you find out that it's just a criminal sending it out there. Some of them are so elaborate. I think those are the scarier ones, because it's like you're actually being targeted, and somebody's monitoring posts looking for little angles like that to try to steal money.
That's right. I think from our perspective as a bank, the ones that we encounter that are the scariest or the best executed that we have seen are where the scammers have access to like an accounts payable person's email and will sit for weeks, months, who knows how long, and then insert themselves in the middle of a payment chain sort of series of commands and change the payment information. And they're obviously a known and trusted individual, so people aren't double checking the change quickly, and money can move out the door very quickly in those situations. And the scammers are very good at waiting.
Yeah, and while they're sitting there for those weeks and months, they're just reading those emails, and they're just learning how things are worded and who has the ability to do what, who has the power. And then, yeah, like just like what you said, when they insert themselves, it's just at the perfect moment where it doesn't look out of place at all.
That's right. I know you mentioned that you did a talk with a bank who rewards employees for being the best at, you know, passing their cybersecurity tests. Have you seen organizations that have any other sort of successful ways to convince their employees that this is important and that they could be the ones who are a vulnerability?
Yeah, that is a tough one, right? How do you convince somebody that we're all susceptible to this? When I do my presentation for the general public, I think slide number 2 of my slide deck is a slide from the Federal Trade Commission that shows that 20-year-olds are twice as likely to fall victim to a scam than 80-year-olds. And most people find that slide very, very surprising. I think there's a lot of information out there that there are scams that target our seniors, and that's absolutely true. But when you just look at that slide, and I mean, it's not just a couple of percentage points, it's twice as likely 20-year-olds. So I always like to use the example of myself. I mean, this is literally my job. I go around the state and I try to teach people about scams and identity theft, and I even know that myself, in that worst possible moment, something going on in my personal life, and I'm kind of freaking out about something, or I'm panicking about something, and it's just, even me, I'm susceptible to scams. In that moment, I might accidentally click on something or answer that phone, or before you know it, you find yourself talking to somebody. Now, how do you convey that to somebody else? That's the tough one, because there's so many of this is until you are victimized, or until you've almost been victimized, you don't realize how easy it is. Talking about it, bringing it up in the staff meetings as much as possible, I guess, would be, requiring employees to maybe do some cybersecurity training. Like I said, if your insurance company might offer something like that, I'm sure there's some free stuff online you can find as well, but awareness.
Yeah, awareness is a big one, and continuing to talk about it, I think, is what I've seen a lot of successful organizations adopt as their strategies. Um, Maybe one more here before we wrap things up. Have you seen any specific type of scam or fraud that targets a nonprofit business more than a for-profit business?
Yeah, let's see. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I would just say this. I think that there's a belief out there that a lot of these scams are, very elaborate, and I mean some of them can be, or where they're stealing voices and deep fake videos, and they've had to put a lot of homework into it. But we know about a lot of these scams: the check overpayment scam, the grandparent scam, the utility imposter scam, the government imposter scam, and they work. And that's, it's sometimes it's just they stick with the ones that work, and they can target all of us. I mean, I'm sure there's some angle that they could probably target a nonprofit, a, a little bit more targeted, I guess, but yeah, nothing pops into my head, unfortunately.
No, that's okay. I can tell you that from the bank's perspective, the most common kind of fraud that we see our nonprofit clients experience is payment fraud specific to somebody getting their account information, either through stealing a check or from having received a check from them, and then using that to create fake checks and fake payments.
Sure, definitely. I guess one thing that could hurt a nonprofit would be there's nothing that stops a criminal from impersonating that nonprofit, calling people, trying to get donations, and then that, kind of, soils the name of that legitimate business, and that could hurt the business kind of on the back end.
Yeah, that's definitely a risk for nonprofits that I don't think a lot of people consider. Well, Jeff, this has been you've given us a lot here, and I think it's been great information. I'm going to make a quick plug for the bank, whether you are a Park Bank client or a client of another bank. Banks in general have some additional tools and insights to help people monitor their accounts and protect their accounts. So please do not hesitate to reach out to whoever your banker is, because they have ideas that they would be happy to talk with your organization about, or you individually, to help protect your accounts to the greatest extent possible. And I think you have more here about DATCP.
Yeah, I guess I was just going to quick plug our outreach services. I threw this up on the screen. These are some of the other presentations that we offer. So if somebody thought this presentation was good, and looking for something else, whether it's for your business or your employees or just on the personal side of things, all of these are free of charge and available virtually or in person, anywhere in the state of Wisconsin.
That's fantastic. I think there are a lot of people who could take advantage of these trainings you offer. So we're happy to help get the word out about what you can do for our pretty much anybody in Wisconsin, our businesses and our consumers. Jeff, this has been a fantastic discussion. I really appreciate your time and your willingness to share your expertise with our clients and any attendee who has attended. And I would like to take a quick minute to plug our next webinar, which will be happening on June 20th. Amanda White from Amanda White Consulting is going to be talking about demystifying major gift giving for nonprofit organizations. So Jeff, thank you again. Thanks to all of our attendees, and I hope everybody has a great weekend.
Thank you.